I remember the day the world stopped breathing, October 29th, 1929. The air on Wall Street was heavy, thick with panic and disbelief. Men who strutted like kings a week before now stood pale and trembling. Their fortunes had vanished in a single morning. Some shouted, some prayed, others simply stared at the ticker, watching numbers fall lower and lower, as if each drop tore away a piece of their souls. And me? I stood at my office window overlooking Broad Street, the chaos echoing below. I didn't cheer, I didn't panic. I simply watched, knowing that everything I had prepared for was unfolding exactly as it should. When the market turned, I was ready. That day, when most men lost everything, I made $100 million. Don't mistake me for a villain or a prophet. I wasn't gambling. I wasn't guessing. I was listening. I was waiting for the inevitable, the moment when greed would meet gravity. If you're trading today, fighting your fear, staring at the screen, wondering why success keeps slipping away, you're not alone. The faces change, the technology changes, but the emotions are eternal. My story is your story too. I didn't start on Wall Street. I began in a small bucket shop in Massachusetts, 16 years old, no money, no education, just curiosity and a piece of chalk. My job was simple: record prices on the board as the ticker printed them. But in those flashing numbers, I started to see something others didn't: patterns, repetition, the rhythm of human behavior. I didn't understand fundamentals, didn't know what a balance sheet was. But I understood emotion. I could see fear, greed, and hope in the tape itself. I realized that the market wasn't just a mechanism, it was a mirror. Every tick was a heartbeat of the crowd. When people got greedy, prices rose. When they got scared, prices fell. Simple, brutal, predictable. So I began to test my observations with small trades. The first time I bet against the crowd and won, it was intoxicating. I wasn't just making money, I was confirming truth. But I learned early that the truth doesn't care about your comfort. The moment you let emotion dictate your trade, the market punishes you. That lesson never changes, even today. Whether you're buying Tesla, crypto, or penny stocks, the crowd always moves the same way. Too late. The instruments evolve, but the psychology never does. I became known as the boy plunger because I'd make large bets in the bucket shops, and more often than not, I'd win. People said I was lucky, but luck, my friend, favors discipline. I lost plenty, but I learned fast that losing small is part of winning big. I never averaged down on a losing trade. That's not courage, it's suicide. When I came to New York, the city pulsed with ambition. Smoke filled the air, typewriters clattered, and the ticker tape never stopped rolling. They said I was reckless. They said I was too young to challenge the giants of Wall Street. But I wasn't challenging them. I was studying them. I realized the richest men weren't the smartest, just the most patient. They waited for the crowd to make mistakes, then acted without hesitation. In 1907, I saw one of those moments. The market trembled under the weight of speculation and credit. Panic spread. While others prayed for recovery, I shorted stocks. The day prices collapsed. I made $3 million. For the first time, I understood the power of conviction. When the market wants to fall, nothing can stop it. And when it wants to rise, nothing can hold it back. But wealth doesn't guarantee wisdom. After that success, I made the same mistake every trader makes at least once. I thought I couldn't lose. I began to trust my ego instead of my method. I traded without waiting for confirmation, forced trades that weren't ready, and gave back millions. That's the irony of the market. It teaches humility by force. Fast forward 2 decades, the 1920s. America was roaring. Jazz in the nightclubs, champagne at every table. Stock prices climbed day after day, and everyone was getting rich. Secretaries, taxi drivers, even barbers were giving stock tips. They called it a new era of prosperity. Newspapers printed stories of people turning $1,000 investments into fortunes overnight. That's when I knew the top was near. When the crowd starts to believe it's easy, danger is close. I began to study the numbers again. Margin debt was at record highs. Trading volume was exploding. The average man had more stock than savings. That's not investing. That's mania. I'd seen it before. I knew how it ends. So I started building my short positions quietly. Railroads, steel, utilities, companies built on borrowed confidence. I wasn't in a hurry. Timing is everything in this game. You can be right too early and still go broke. I waited for confirmation from the tape, the subtle cracks in the market's facade. When I saw leaders start to falter, when rallies became weaker, I knew the shift was coming. You might think this sounds old-fashioned, but look around you. The same signs appear today. When you see people making fortunes overnight on digital coins, when companies with no profits trade at impossible valuations, when euphoria replaces logic, that's when you should prepare, not participate. In 1928, the market looked unstoppable. But I'd learned to trust behavior, not headlines. I added to my short positions month after month, even as others laughed. They said, "Jesse, you're crazy. The world has changed. That's what they always say before it crashes." Then came October 1929. The ticker began to lag. Prices fell faster than it could print. Brokers shouted, phones rang off the hook. By noon, panic had spread through every trading house in New York. The floor erupted in chaos. Men who were millionaires in the morning were bankrupt by afternoon. I stood watching, expressionless. It wasn't arrogance, it was clarity. I had been preparing for years, waiting for this exact moment. When everyone else was drowning, I was floating on the tide I'd seen coming. When it was over, I'd made $100 million. But I didn't celebrate. The air outside my office was thick with despair. I watched men walk silently down the street, shoulders slumped as if they'd aged 20 years in a day. Some never recovered. Some didn't survive the week. That's when I learned something more valuable than profit. Success means nothing if it isolates you from humanity. I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. Money can insulate you, but it can't heal you. The market doesn't care about your morals. It only rewards your judgment. Still, I had done what few men ever do. I had read the crowd perfectly and acted with precision. People called me a genius. But genius is just another word for discipline under pressure. The real battle isn't with the market, it's with yourself. If you're trading today, you face the same enemy. It's not the algorithm or the hedge fund or the central bank. It's that voice inside you whispering, maybe one more trade, maybe I can win it back. That voice has destroyed more fortunes than any crash ever did. Control that voice and you'll outlast everyone. Over the years, I developed rules that guided me through chaos. Never average down. Always cut losses quickly. Let profits run. Trade only when the tape confirms your judgment. These weren't slogans. They were survival tactics. I broke them enough times to know their importance. Every broken rule cost me dearly. You see, the crowd is never wrong, except at the extremes. At the top, greed blinds them. At the bottom, fear paralyzes them. That's where opportunity lives, if you have the courage to act when no one else will. Every great trader must master three virtues: patience, courage, and emotional control. Patience to wait for the right setup, courage to act when it appears, and control to do nothing when it's not your time. The market tests all three endlessly. Fail one, and it will strip you bare. I've seen what happens to those who can't master their emotions. They start strong, win big, and then lose everything because they can't stop. I've been there myself. Success has a strange way of blinding you to risk. The more you win, the more you feel invincible. That's when the market humbles you. Even after my greatest victory, I wasn't immune. I faced losses that would break most men. The same traits that made me rich, confidence, conviction, became weapons against me when I ignored discipline. I learned that a trader never truly arrives. You're always one bad decision away from ruin. That's why I say, your biggest opponent is yourself. Your discipline is your edge. Your patience is your armor. Your ego is your executioner. If you think these words belong to another era, think again. Every generation believes they're smarter than the last. Every bubble convinces the world it's different this time. And every crash proves it isn't. The tools may change, computers, AI, crypto, but the core remains the same. Human nature doesn't evolve as fast as technology. I've watched from the pages of history as traders repeat our mistakes. Dot-coms in the 2000s, housing in 2008, digital gold and meme stocks in the 2020s. The same story, rewritten with new symbols. If you want to survive this game, you must study not the charts, but the crowd. When markets rise, stay humble. When they fall, stay calm. That's how you last. Don't chase euphoria. Don't drown in panic. Remember, markets are designed to transfer wealth from the impatient to the patient. I often think back to those bucket shop days, the smell of chalk dust and the sound of the ticker machine. That's where I learned everything that mattered. Not about money, but about men. The market exposes character. It shows you who you really are when you're winning and who you become when you're losing. If you can master yourself, you can master the market. But if you can't, no system, no strategy, no signal will save you. I made $100 million in 1929, but that wasn't my greatest accomplishment. My greatest victory was realizing that every trade was a lesson in psychology. Every price movement was a story about fear and greed. You, the trader watching this today, live in a world I could never imagine. Screens glow with data I could only dream of. But don't let information fool you into thinking you have control. You still face the same choice I did. Patience or impulse, courage or fear, discipline or destruction. Before your next trade, stop and ask yourself, what would Jesse Livermore see right now? Would I chase the price because everyone else is? Or would I wait for confirmation, trust my judgment, and act when emotion peaks? The answer to that question could define your career. If you've listened this far, you're already different from most. Because most traders never study history, they just repeat it. But history is the greatest teacher. It repeats itself because people don't change. I want you to take one thing from my story. Markets may evolve, but human nature doesn't. If you can understand emotion, control yourself, and respect your own rules, you'll survive anything the market throws at you. And if you want to go deeper into the principles that made me a legend, and at times a cautionary tale, subscribe to this channel. Because I've left behind more than numbers and trades. I've left behind a blueprint for those brave enough to use it. History repeats itself because people don't change, but you can.